You've heard of NBA Live and NBA 2K. Those were the two giants of the NBA video game scene, and despite EA not releasing a live title since 2018, I would say most people have heard of and have played an NBA Live game at some point in their lives. NBA Inside Drive, however, is a series I'm willing to bet most people have not only never played, but have also never heard of. It's very similar to NFL Fever in the sense that the series flew under the radar despite having a very popular sports license. Like Fever, Inside Drive was an Xbox exclusive, although the first title was only released on PC. Both games were also developed by the now defunct XSN Sports, created by Microsoft. The studio built a series of NBA titles that were not only comparable to the more popular NBA 2K and NBA Live games, but were arguably better at simulating actual NBA basketball and pacing. The NBA Inside Drive titles had a very small following, but those who played them appreciated the game's more sim-style approach to gameplay. The final game in the series, NBA Inside Drive 2004, is a fantastic game in my opinion, but one that I rarely hear about. I found the game at a comic book store used, played it, and I was pleasantly surprised. After doing some research online, I learned more about the franchise and just how great Inside Drive 04 was for its time. While the series is no more, and by today's standards the graphics and gameplay are a bit aged, Inside Drive still holds up, and when you compare the game to NBA Live 04 and NBA 2K4, it holds its own. This is the greatest NBA video game that you've probably never played. Before we move on, I have to thank Audible for sponsoring today's video. Audible is a website and app where each month you get 1 credit you can use to listen to any title in Audible's library, and you get full access to the new Plus catalog, which features thousands of select audiobooks, podcasts, guided meditation programs, and more. Whatever you choose to use your credit on is yours forever, and by going to audible.com/softdrinksports or texting softdrinksports to 500-500, you get your first month free, meaning you can select anything in Audible's library and listen to it right now for free. I've been listening to the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People because I want to be more productive with my time, and so far it's really been helping me. Listening to audiobooks has been a game changer for me, as I like to play them in the background while playing video games or taking long drives. You can even download titles for offline listening, which is great for flights. With your own free audiobook, as well as full access to thousands of included titles with the new Plus catalog, what are you waiting for? Visit audible.com/softdrinksports or text softdrinksports to 500-500 right this second. Now back to the video. Inside Drive 04 was the last NBA game to release in 2003, dropping in November, which may have been part of the reason it flew under the radar so much. NBA Live and 2K were already available weeks prior. Graphically, while the game doesn't have presentation on par with 2K's ESPN package, it's decent enough, and player models have a surprising amount of detail to them. This game was not intended to dazzle anyone with graphics, sound, or presentation, however. The soundtrack is pretty funny though, consisting of songs created for the game, with artists rapping about the Xbox and NBA Inside Drive itself, sort of like the Madden 20 soundtrack. The commentary team consists of Kevin Calabro, Marquez Johnson, and Kenny the Jet Smith. Obviously, Kenny is in modern 2K games, so it's pretty cool to hear him on an older game. There are some funny lines such as, "It's round and orange, but still a brick," after a missed shot. While reviewers like IGN and GameSpot didn't like the presentation initially when the game released, I think it's pretty decent when playing today. Gameplay, however, is what makes this a great game, in my opinion. Passing and play calling are very well done. The ball leaves the player's hands very fast, shot releases are quick, and in what was very innovative for its time, there is a separate button used for lob passes and touch passes. 2K does this today, but in 2003, Inside Drive was ahead of the curve. With play calling, you could examine and select from many sets in the playbook, and using the D-pad, you could access 4 at a time mid-game. It worked very well for creating open shots and is easily the best play calling method amongst Live and 2K from that era. hitting a slasher on his way to the basket for the easy layup, or coming off of a curl to hit an open shooter feels easy and rewarding. Defensively, you can control the level of pressure placed on the ball handler, choose how you want your AI to react to switches off screens, and even switch between man and zone defensive sets. Gameplay was fairly realistic for the time, with Inside Drive delivering the most sim-like NBA game. On 6-minute quarters, both teams would usually score normal NBA numbers with a final score in the hundreds. In order to be successful on offense, you need to run plays, utilize the pick and roll, and use each player correctly based on their attributes. On defense, the game really challenges you. The AI will be quick to find an open shot and will pull the trigger on it. You have to react fast, and playing user defense on the ball handler is the way to go. You'll want to adjust how your AI teammates react to switches based on the team you're up against. Fouls are commonly called in this game, perhaps a little too much, which means you simply can't spam the steal or block button. The CPU AI is a challenge on defense as well, even when using a top guard such as Steve Nash or Kobe Bryant. If you try driving right to the basket, don't be surprised when the AI steals the ball from you. A top slasher will often get fouls called, however, sending you to the line plenty of times. This game really nails the little things too. Players will rebound their own misses and try to tip them back in. Shooting guards run around picks through the lane and then cut outside for the open three. Players dive out of bounds to save the ball. Big men get winded and have trouble coming up the court. Players jump off the bench before getting subbed in, and more. These are small things that are easy to overlook. At the time, the more casual NBA fans would have probably purchased the more arcade-style NBA Live 04 to simply perform cool dunks with their favorite players. But the sim heads bought and appreciated Inside Drive. Of all the NBA games from this era, Inside Drive plays the most realistically. In order to be successful, you need to play the game like an NBA team actually would. There's no blow-by cheese or pick-and-roll cheese you can spam over and over. It takes actual strategy to win, and I find that to be this game's greatest strength. The overall pacing of the game captures the feel of the NBA, better than any other game from that era, and rivals what we have today. In terms of game modes and depth, Inside Drive 04 is no slouch, but it also won't blow you away. Franchise mode has 25 playable seasons, and while you can sign free agents and draft players, that's about it. There's no coaching staff to hire, no relocation options, no owner management. While the gameplay and AI are fantastic, the offline depth is nothing special. However, remember, this was a Microsoft-developed game, and they were really pushing Xbox Live back in the day. Take your skills online and join the XSN Sports League. Well, you can't anymore, but back then, that was the move. You and your friends could create your own NBA league with complete stat tracking recorded for your online games. Microsoft nailed online play with their XSN-developed sports games back in the day, and while you can't really appreciate it anymore, it's worth bringing up. As I mentioned with the depth, this game is not perfect. Animations and player movement have not aged too well, but for its time, this was the king of sim NBA games. If you're someone who values gameplay over anything else, this should have been your game of choice. It's a shame that the game didn't sell very well, and likely due to pressure from EA and 2K, Microsoft stopped developing sports games altogether after this game. NFL Fever, NBA Inside Drive, and a few other titles were no more. Inside Drive ended with a bang, however. While 04 wasn't exactly too different from 03, it delivered incredibly realistic gameplay that you didn't want to stop playing. Despite the lack of depth to the game's franchise mode, you could find yourself playing through multiple seasons based on the sheer realism and fun of the gameplay. If you're more of an arcade guy, NBA Live 04 was probably for you. If you were more of a presentation and graphics kind of guy, ESPN NBA 2K4 was probably for you. But if you valued gameplay over anything else, not only would NBA Inside Drive have been for you in 2003, but even today, you'll likely enjoy and appreciate this underrated game. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe to my channel. Remember, you can always unsubscribe down the road if you're unhappy with future uploads. And while you're here, check out this video on Arena Football, a super underrated game as well, or check out my retrospective playlist below.